Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan and today we're going to be doing a super early 2023 NHL mock draft ranking. Now around this time of year when we have the NHL draft upcoming and close, I like to look a couple years ahead to the upcoming NHL drafts to see what amazing talent lies in store for hockey and the NHL. And the 2023 NHL draft could be a draft for the ages. You obviously got Connor Bedard and Matvei Michkov, two absolutely sensational talents. But even besides those guys, you have some amazing talents that will be stars in the NHL, especially in the top 10. But who do I see as the best prospects right now in the 2023 NHL draft, and which prospects right now are looking to be top 10 picks in a couple of years for that 2023 NHL entry draft? Watch till the end for the entire draft and the entire rankings content, and hit that subscribe button if you're new. 60% of the people watching are not subscribed, so every bit helps. And if you enjoy draft and prospect and hockey content, we'd love to have you in the crowd, gang. Now, obviously, when looking at any NHL draft class a couple of years ahead of time, it looks pretty raw. But honestly, in this 2023 NHL draft class, even though there is a pretty big drop-off after Connor Bedard and Matvei Michkov, there is still some absolutely elite talent, especially in the top 10. Kind of reminds me of 2022, where you got, obviously, Shane Wright and Brad Lambert and Matthew Savoy. But there's not really too much of a drop-off because you still have great overall potential first line and top pairing defensemen that will be great players in the future for NHL franchises. And I think that'll be the same way as well in this 2023 NHL draft. But we're going to start out at number 10, the 10th best prospect in 2023. This is a player that I have my eyes on quite a bit over this past year and has made some great progress over in Slovakia. We're now going to move on to a Slovakian-born forward, Andrei Molnar. Now, Andrei Molnar is a pretty interesting project. He's 6 foot at age 16. He's a left winger and has made some great progress over there. He played 8 games in the main Slovakian league, the same league that Brant Clark played in this year, and even though he had 0 points, he was still able to play those games as a 16-year-old, which I think is a pretty huge accomplishment. And in the second tier of Slovakia, he had 15 points in 22 games played. Again, still playing against adults and still looking pretty good. That's not too bad whatsoever. And even in Slovakia's U20 tier, he had 4 points, 3 goals in 3 games played. But when it comes to Molnar, he plays a little bit smaller than his size, but his size is definitely an added bonus. He's great speed, great overall athleticism, and he's a guy that I could definitely see being a top 10 pick and being one of Slovakia's brightest stars over these next couple of years. But now moving on to the 9th best prospect in the 2023 NHL draft, we're going to move on to a guy that's made some excellent progress in Finland, is related to a pretty recent draft pick as well, and again, has real potential to be maybe the best Finnish player of this draft. We're now going to move on to number 9 and go on to Emil Järventie. Now, Emil Järventie is related to, of course, Robbie Järventie from the Sens second round selection back in 2020. He, though, has made some excellent progress, a lot more than even his brother did. He, in this season, ended up playing in the U20 Liga at 16 years old as a 5'10 forward and had 13 points in 20 games played, 8 goals, 5 assists. Normally, for a draft year player in the U20 Liga, around a point per game is what you'd expect for the high-end prospects there. But Järventie with 13 points in 20 games played and 8 goals especially, already making himself pretty well known as a 16-year-old in a U20 league. Certainly impressive, and he'll probably be one of the highest drafted Europeans in 2023. But now moving on to the 8th best prospect of the 2023 NHL draft, a guy that I don't really see getting mentioned too much when it comes to boards and rankings for 2023, but I think has had some really great progress and is one of the younger ones as well in this draft class. We're going to move on to one of the best names as well in 2023 and move on to another Slovakian-born forward in Dalibor Dvorsky. Now, Dalibor Dvorsky, a fantastic name obviously, but does have the talent to back it all up. He's 15 years old and he turns 16 this June, so he's a pretty late birthday when it comes to the draft year, but he's a center, already 6 foot, 187 pounds, and he's made some excellent progress. He played in the main Slovakia league this year, and we talked about, of course, with Andrei Molnar at number 10, how he played 8 Slovakian games, had 0 points. When it comes to Dvorsky, he played in 20 Slovakian games, getting 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points at 15 years old. He also played in the Junior 18 region in Sweden, and it was awesome there, getting 14 points in 6 games played. He's absolutely filling out that frame, though, and if he is a center, that's some heavy value. He's already had that physicality, but he's already had that silky smooth offensive skill. You've seen that in Slovakian League, and you see that in Sweden as well. This is a player that could have a pretty strong presence in the 2023 draft and will likely be in Sweden, maybe even the SHL for his draft year. And now moving on to the 7th best prospect in the 2023 NHL draft. This is the guy that could probably move throughout this list as well, as we see him enter the OHL and probably be a dominant player for the Sudbury Wolves. We're going to move on to the first overall pick from the OHL draft and go on to USA winger Quentin Musty. Now, Quentin Musty is an absolute must in the top 10. I know, great job. Musty is a very, very good player if you do not know already. He's 15 years old and was selected first overall by the Sudbury Wolves in the OHL draft. And the main thing that when you just look at him and look at his profile, the main thing that strikes out is at 15 years old, he's 6'3", 181 pounds. He's an absolute mammoth out there on the ice. But again, his hockey skill, his hockey sense, his overall game would get underrated in that sense too, because he has so much to offer. I think was definitely worth that first overall pick, was pretty much the unanimous guy as the number 1 in the OHL draft. He will be again with the Sudbury Wolves and will have a huge impact on that roster. I think he's a guy that will dominate the OHL and will likely be one of the most interesting and competitive prospects in this top 10. But now going on to the 6th spot and the 6th best prospect in the 2023 NHL draft, going to easily, in my opinion, one of the most underrated prospects for this 2023 draft class, a guy that's absolutely dominated over this last year and is really making a name for himself. We're going to go to yet another USA forward, potentially a winger as well, and move on to number 6, going on to Charlie Strommel. Now, Charlie Strommel is another player that I am very, very high on. He has soured of a little bit of the same build as of course, Quentin Musty. He's 6'3", 216 pounds at age 16, coming from Rosemount, Minnesota. But when it comes to Strommel, he's made such a huge impact and one of the biggest impacts of this 2023 draft class so far. He's played 15 games for the U18 USDP, the top USDP team, and got 7 points, 4 goals in 15 games played. Did not look out of place at 16 years old. And he also was playing with Team USA in the World Juniors for the U18 tier, and as a 16-year-old was one of their better players. He got 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points in 5 games played, and when USA needed a spark, Strommel was usually there making something happen. He has a lot of great attributes, though. His skating is very, very good for his size. He's got great acceleration, great overall motor, and he's a guy that I think in terms of potential, in terms of the skill that he can bring, has already made so much progress. Of course, he'll be with the University of Wisconsin as well, which is a great program, especially for forwards. You've seen Cole Caulfield and Dylan Holloway go there. I think Charlie Strommel is absolutely the real deal and will be, I think, one of the best prospects of this draft class too. But now we can officially get inside the top 5 for the 2023 NHL draft class, and we're going to move on to number 5, a guy that was at one point considered for WHL exceptional status. Didn't quite get it, but I still think has a lot of talent to be a top pick in this draft. We're going to move on to Canadian forward Riley Heidt. Now, Riley Heidt is an interesting one, coming from Saskatoon, a 5'10" forward, had a very interesting first season with the Prince George Cougars. He was drafted 2nd overall in the 2020 WHL draft and had 8 points in 22 games played. Now, for a guy his age, it doesn't seem the most impressive on paper, but when you look at the scoring for the Prince George Cougars, it makes a lot more sense. Their highest scorer was Craig Armstrong with 13 points in 21 games played, and there came Riley Heidt with 8 points in 22 games played as a 16-year-old. I wouldn't exactly worry about that because the creativity, the playmaking there is absolutely exceptional. The vision, the overall awareness is fantastic, and I think he will be another great WHL player from this draft class. We'll get into a couple others that are pretty great as well themselves, but Riley Heidt is definitely a great player, and inside the top 5, you cannot go wrong. Now, I'm not sure if he'll be a center or where he would play play positionally for the future, but there's some options there, and I think a team inside the top 5 eventually will be pretty happy with him. But now officially going on to number 4, the 4th best prospect of the 2023 NHL draft class, we're going to move on to another WHLer and another Saskatoon-born player. Moving on now to Brayden Yager. Now, Brayden Yager, again, when I first remember I saw his name a couple years back, I'm like, please have it be pronounced Yager, but it is not. It is Yager, but he's still a pretty fantastic player. He was drafted 3rd overall, right behind Riley Heidt in the 2020 WHL draft, and he went to the Moose Jaw Warriors, where in his first season in the WHL had a pretty good stint. In 24 games played, 7 goals, 11 assists for 18 points, and I would say among the rookies in the WHL looked like one of the more comfortable ones out there. He would end up being 2nd in team scoring, tied with Damon Hunt, who was a pretty high draft pick by the Minnesota Wild, even though he is a defenseman. That is still pretty impressive for a 16-year-old, but the overall playmaking, the overall tenacity, the overall work ethic is fantastic with Yager, and I think he's a guy that inside the top 5 could be a first-line player, a great player, and maybe a foundational piece. Really, this top 5 is just elite in the 2023 draft, and Yager, Heidt, these two guys really exemplify that. But now officially getting inside the top 3 for the 2023 NHL draft, we're going to go to a guy that a lot of people were asking me about in the 2022 NHL draft rankings, but he is for 2023, a guy that's on the older side of things for sure, but has made a humongous impact with his team. We're now going to move on to one of the most interesting prospects of the draft and move on to Adam Fantilli. Adam Fantilli is a super interesting prospect, and again, is on the older side of things, but he's a center, age 16, 6'2", 190 pounds, and he was playing in the USHL for the Chicago Steel this past year, where he simply put was exceptional. 49 games played, 18 goals, 18 assists for 36 points, but what he did in the playoffs was even more spectacular. He got 8 goals, 1 assist, 9 points in 8 USHL playoff games, and was named the MVP for the Chicago Steel, who ended up winning the championship in the USHL. Fantilli was absolutely amazing, and even though the Chicago Steel have so many great options and so many great weapons, I think it will definitely help Fantilli going from that program on to eventually where he'll go afterwards, because when it comes to Fantilli, even though he has been a little bit less of a star player, guys like Matthew Coronado of this 2021 draft have been that on that team. I think when it comes to Fantilli's overall skill level and work ethic and size and ability already, he's a top 3 prospect in this draft, and I think going to a team like Chicago, who has built so many great young forwards, I think he will be another big part of that and could be one of the best players of that entire franchise's history, looking back on it when it's all said and done. Now, of course, we're going to move on to the top 2 picks. You know who it is. It's going to be Connor Bedard, and it's going to be some guy named Matvei Michkov. You probably heard of him. They were kind of awesome during the U18s as 15 and 16-year-olds. Now, I think you pretty much expect what my top 2 will be when it comes to the combination of these guys, but I cannot stress enough. It's kind of like some other drafts where the 2nd overall pick is almost as good as the 1st overall pick, and nobody's really complaining if they get the 2nd overall pick. These 2 talents are absolutely franchise-altering, generational talents that will absolutely change a franchise from every single brick, every single morsel of the franchise will be changed by these guys' presences. But I do have to take one at 2 and one at 1, and coming at number 2, I have Matvei Michkov. To me, Matvei Michkov might be the best goal scorer we've seen in a very long time, and although the Alex Ovechkin comparisons I think might be a little bit too much, Michkov has a lot of the same qualities. His ability to get open ice is just fantastic. His vision, his creativity, his skating is marvelous, and I think he's probably the best Russian prospect since at least Andrei Ovechkin, and has the potential to be the best Russian prospect since Alex Ovechkin. Now we can move on to number 1, though, and this is also pretty easy in Connor Bedard. You saw what he was doing at 15 years old in the U18s. Absolutely brilliant. Everything about Bedard's game is calculated and exceptional at every single level. The skating, the puck handling, the shot, the ability to create space, the movement, the separation, the skating, the overall ability, the maturity level at his age is simply sensational. He is one of the best prospects we will ever see, I think, and deserves the hype on his name. He will absolutely torch torch the WHL in the near future. And if I were a person trying to get tickets for, let's just say, a Regina Pats game, you should probably do it as soon as possible, because those things are going to skyrocket right now, because everybody's going to want to see Connor Bedard. He is must-watch hockey. And whoever has the luckiness of drafting him first overall will be eternally grateful for those lottery balls. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Comment down below what do you agree and disagree with, and who do you see as the top prospects in the 2023 NHL draft, and which teams you guys think could be as bad to get these guys by the time 2023 rolls around. Let me know your thoughts there. Share the video with your friends. Get the top prospects for 2023 out there and their names known, and click on this card for my 2022 NHL draft content right on playlist. My name is Nathan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Have a great day, everyone, and goodbye.